You know those times when you see a prospect drafted and you're like, what? What? Looking at his stats, this dude has a production of a top 10 pick. But they were selected in the 3rd round. Why? And what is probably the best way I can describe this exact scenario is by looking at Jacques Goyette. Because after playing in the KMJHL, Goyette would put up an incredible 76 goals, 170 points in 62 games. This is McDavid's most dominant season. John Tavares, you know what? My man had a better season production-wise than Sidney Crosby. Yet, Goyette would never play a single game of professional hockey in his life. And you know why? Well, this guy just so happened to play on the same line as Mario Lemieux, who just so happened to put up a monumental 282 points in that same season. Thus, Mario was just so dominant, he single-handedly dragged Jacques into the world record books. And so it made me think, what are all the other impressive prospects who just so happen to play on the right team at the right time? And it's also the right time, the perfect time for you to press that subscribe button. We are getting so close to my goal of 50,000 subscribers, and you would really make my day by helping me get there. Back in 2009 was around the time I started to really dive deep into the hockey community. And that year I would turn on the draft, headlined by stars such as Tavares and Victor Hedman. Myself, being a young Canucks fan, was only focused on pick number 22. And so when we drafted Jordan Shroeder, I was head over heels. Because in his draft year, Schroeder would put up an unbelievable 45 points in 35 NCAA games for the University of Minnesota. In the last 10 years, one player has had a better NCAA draft year than Jordan Shroeder. Can you guess who? That's right, Jack Eichel, Jacko. Not to mention that besides John Tavares and just, I guess, all of Team Canada, Jordan was the leading scorer in the World Juniors in his draft year, as he would put up 11 points in 6 games. And not only that, he is the leading scorer for Team USA in tournament history. Move over, JR, Austin Matthews, Patrick Kane, Schroeder time, baby. So basically, Schroeder had the draft resume of a first overall pick, franchise player. Can you imagine how myself as a kid just starting to understand stats and analytics felt? Well, to be honest, it gave me a harsh reality check on prospect development. Because throughout Schroeder's entire NHL career, he would put up 13 points in his best season. But why? Well, when he was drafted, Schroeder was playing on a stacked University of Minnesota team. In fact, after his landmates departed, Schroeder's production would see massive decline in his draft +1 season. But the thing is, many people attribute Schroeder's downfall to his size because he was 5'9". However, what really did it to him was a series of ankle injuries. All of a sudden, not only are you small, but you lost all your craftiness and your step that allowed you to play against that bigger competition. If anything, Schroeder was one of those prospects that got me super into hockey, as I was dumbfounded by his incredible resume and the fact that he had production of a first overall pick and was drafted 22nd overall. When it comes to CHL teams being absolute wagons, look no farther than the early 2010s Portland Winterhawks, as this team seemed to have about 4 or 5 100-point scorers on the roster at all times. In 2012, Rattie would put up 57 goals, 121 points, on the same roster that had Sven Berge, Derek Pouliot, Brendan Leipsic, Nic Petan, Joe Morrow. To sum it up, this team was just deep and star-studded. The next season we would see a huge jump, 3 players with 110 points or more, as Brendan Leipsic would put up 120 points, Nic Petan would also put up 120 points, and Rattie with 110. Not to mention they had Seth Jones and Oliver Bjorkstrand, who would also join the 100-point club. And what is fascinating about this team is that even though they were basically a WHL super team, is the fact that they had all this star power and would basically completely utterly fail at the NHL level, which is just crazy, because I remember seeing this team when I was younger and I was just in awe. But what my theory is the fact that super deep rosters are not common in the WHL. And so what I attribute this dominance to is the fact that they all just gelled super well together, and they had crazy depth, which would ultimately inflate all of their numbers. Like, imagine if you had McDavid scoring 100 points in Edmonton, and all of a sudden you matched him up on a line with Austin Matthews in Draisaitl. Now all of a sudden you were scoring at crazy paces. Because guess what? Brendan Leipsic in his 120 point season would fail to transition to the NHL and would basically be shadow banned because of leaked Instagram DMs. Rattie, back-to-back 110 point seasons in the dub. He would get the chance to play on McDavid's line, yet couldn't do anything. Nic Petan, who was on pace for nearly 3 straight 110 point seasons and led Team Canada to a gold medal, has put up 13 points in his most productive season. Crazy stuff when you consider the talent on this roster. I mean, a comparable team would be something like the London Knights. However, that team was led by players like Mitch Marner, Max Domi, Dvorak, Bo Horvat, all of which are doing okay today. So to think that not even just one of those players developed into a roster player at the NHL level, that's crazy. And to add another crazy layer, which probably just further reinforces their dominance, Portland in 2012 would be fined $200,000 and were forced to give up 5 first-round draft picks because they were breaking their player benefit policy by paying for parents' flights and paying for player services such as summer training and phone bills. So no wonder they were deep when they were the only team giving out these benefits, which probably made them a more attractive choice.
When OHL 2012 #1 pick Connor McDavid hits the ice with the Erie Otters, opponents and fans quickly see the unique skill set that earned the 15-year-old center exceptional player status from Hockey Canada.
Back in 2013, when McDavid was really starting to get on everyone's radar for being the next great phenom, also stood this guy, Dane Fox, McDavid's line mate. In fact, in 2014, the year before McDavid was drafted, Dane Fox not only outscored Connor McDavid, but he was arguably the best goal scorer in all of the CHL, as Dane Fox would put up an incredible 64 goals in 67 games, on top of having a very rugged and gritty playing style. And so as McDavid was getting a bigger spotlight, so was Dane Fox, as he was literally McDavid's mentor and also an elite goal scoring prospect. And so when the Canucks signed him back in 2013, I was like, booyah! However, Dane Fox would go from outscoring McDavid on the same line to never stepping a foot in the NHL. In fact, he would barely step a foot in the minors, as he would go from a 64 goal scorer outscoring McDavid to becoming an ECHL player, and has spent the last 4 years overseas in Germany. But if anything, this may just be the McDavid effect. In 2019, we had the exact opposite scenario, because coming from a loaded USDP team, Cole Caufield would be disrespected when it came to the draft, because my man has literally been a goal per game scorer since he was in diapers. I mean, 72 goals in 64 games in his draft year, yet many scouts considered him to be too good to be true. I mean, even this year in the NCAA, Cole Caufield has become a goal per game player at the NCAA level too. Ryan Whitney on one of the last pods probably said it best. He has been an elite goal scorer at every single level, so why couldn't he do it again? And it also got me thinking, we haven't seen a goal scoring prospect like this in a minute, let alone one who is 5'7". So the question is, if Cole Caufield comes in and becomes a 30+ goal scorer, does the small player stigma really take a back seat? Because it's pretty crazy to think that Caufield was the most productive player in his entire draft class, but gets put aside because his numbers are too good to be true when you take into account his size alone. I guess we'll see. Anyways guys, can you name a prospect that put up incredible numbers just to become an absolute flop? Comment down below, I would love to know. And if you enjoy the videos, make sure to press subscribe for some more awesome hockey content. And as always, thanks for watching.